Good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Half-Ashed. My name's Craig Schneider, and across the glass, rather thick glass, 1,100-mile thick glass, is my good friend Kip Fisher.
Good evening, sir. How you doing?
I'm pretty good tonight. I'm happy to be here. A little bit of a different night for recording for us, and I gotta say, it's making a Sunday be a lot better than it normally would be.
Oh, how did it make your Friday?
It normally makes my Friday excellent. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. See, I told you I was a little slow tonight. You pulled a fast one on me. No, my Friday was just fine. It was jam packed with entertaining my mother who was in town. So
My parents are in town as we speak.
that's all right. So we can share horror stories and the "What else have you been experiencing" segment later on.
I'm in good shape. I actually get along well with both my parents and in-laws, so I can't complain.
Good for you. I do too. I just nothing against my mother in the slightest. It's just you get to that point where you're just not leading your normal life. Someone else is staying with you. You're doing things always differently than you normally do. You're going to bed at a different time, getting up differently, blah blah blah. That's where it had just been. But I love my mother to death. So
Man, nobody likes their routine wrinkled.
yeah, yeah, that's what it comes down to. As much as I say I'm not a creature of habit, it's days like today that prove I am. So, but anyways, luckily we're enough of a creature of habit to do this show on a weekly basis.
Yeah, it actually is getting to be a routine. So yeah.
I know. I'm pretty happy about the fact that 2013 is now first quarter 2013 is coming to a close, and somebody hasn't sent us a death threat saying that we're making their ears bleed for recording.
Yeah, my imagination was this would be painful for folks to listen to or watch for a while. I don't know how much that's the case, but I'm having fun doing it.
Hey, I got a actually kind of a bit of cool news that I found out this weekend.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, about people listening to the show. My second cousin, she lives a ways from me in another Chicago suburb. Um, she told me when I saw her on Saturday that she's been listening to the show.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I've alluded in the past on the show, and I know that you and I have talked about it in the past. I've got a lot of family-related history to cigars and the cigar industry, and so she certainly embraces that. And although she's not a cigar smoker, her father was a cigar smoker, and grew up around it in the same family get-togethers that I was at when all the older generation would be the only people allowed to smoke inside somebody's house, and it would be because they'd be smoking cigars, not cigarettes or anything. So, she said that she enjoyed listening, and she, oddly enough, she sent along her compliments to both of us. So, maybe she was lying. I don't know, but
Yeah, you got to say nice stuff to your relatives.
well, yeah, that's true. But anyway, she's an honest person, so I'll take it to heart. How's that?
Cool.
So. Well, what's been new and exciting for you? It's been a little bit longer than a week since we've talked on the air, although certainly over email and stuff. But
Yeah, it's been
anything going on?
yeah, it's been a fairly quiet week for me. I have gotten in quite a few cigars, even more than normal for me. But so I guess that makes it a good week.
Yeah, it makes it a great week. I have to say I have had a few more than normal for me. Um, I'm nowhere near the volume that you are. A regular week for me is probably two or three, but this week I was probably up around five or six. So doubled my intake.
The show is creeping into your life.
No, I actually had a bit of an enjoyable experience. Well, it sounds odd, but enjoyable because it ended up involving cigars. Friday night, late, an hour left at the office, I get a call from a client, and she says, "Yeah, I do want you to go ahead and submit that thing." Um, so I'm like, "Oh, all right. Well, it's 45 minutes to the municipality that I needed to drive from where I was at, and it was the opposite direction of my home. So I went, I dropped off, I submitted the documents that I needed to submit, and so I find myself at 5 o'clock on a Friday, an hour and 15 minutes from my home, and right in the downtown of a suburb that's got a cigar store I've never been in. And so what the heck? I'll use this. I'll make lemonade out of lemons here, in this fact that I had to drive late on a Friday for work, and so I stopped in a cigar store and picked a few up.
That does not bother me at all. I enjoy few things more than finding a new cigar shop, especially when it turns out to be a good one. They're getting so hard to find these days that it's just nice to find a hidden gem sometimes.
Well, we'll uh, we'll hit the pause button on my description of this cigar store and pick it up in the other things we're going to discuss in a later segment involving the world of cigars. But it was certainly nice to kind of brighten the Friday afternoon that kind of took a torpedo hit late in the day. But there's more to the story that we can get into, and that I'm going to look forward to letting myself. I don't know, maybe get a little emotional and a little bit of a rant on. So it'll be a good time.
Ah, some intrigue.
It might be the world's worst tease, but anyways, you'll want to stick around even despite how bad that was. Well,
Oh,
tonight we got a cigar that I think both of us enjoy that we're going to be smoking, and I think both of us are smoking already. The Flor de las Antillas from my father.
yep, that's it. And we have, I guess, slightly different opinions of it, but I think we both enjoy the cigar quite a bit.
Yeah, yeah, I know it's definitely one that when it was recommended to me and when I initially tried it, I was pleasantly surprised. It was a nice introduction into the my father core lines, really.
Yeah, and this one just came out last May, several weeks before IPCPR, and I actually had the opportunity to try it day one, actually day minus one. My local shop got them in the day before they were supposed to release, and I happened to be there and gave them a try, and it struck me as very different from everything else I had from my father, and man, it still does. Uh, gotta
Well,
say, I just like him quite a bit.
I have to say, I've smoked a number of these, probably not a ton or anything, but probably half dozen, somewhere between a half dozen and a dozen of a number of different vitolas, and this is the first that I'm having a little bit of trouble with. I'm actually not able to keep it lit. I just lit it as the show started, and I have to relight it.
Hmm.
Hmm. Hmm.
I've had nothing like that with. I have had the Robusto, the Toro, and the Bellicoso. And I think I actually like the Bellicoso probably the best. But the Toro is the Vitola that got the Cigar of the Year this past year from Cigar Aficionado, and had a really high score for a non-vintage, non-Cuban cigar from them.
Mm-hmm.
I said it was like a 94 or 96 even they gave this thing. And I don't know that that would have been my pick, but it is a fine cigar.
It's actually, not to get into a rat hole before we even get into the show here, but you just spurred a topic that I think that we could definitely have a lot of fun with. I think that this cigar scored in the top 5 or 10 ever of non-Cuban cigars with Cigar Aficionado.
Yeah,
Um,
it was a very high score, and I'm not going to stick it out there to be quoted, but I believe it was a 96.
yeah, I can think of maybe 2 or 3 cigars that have ever been rated as their classic that are non-Cubans. Um, yeah, I don't think any of them have been a my father rating before this. If this was a classic, I don't know the rating. I just know that it was, as you say, exceptionally high or uncommonly high is probably the right term.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
But like many of their others, just to kind of hit the high points on what the cigar is before we talk about what we think about it. Like most of their other stuff, it's a Nicaraguan puro. It actually has a lower MSRP than many of the core line of my father. It's I got 660 to 870. 660 being the Robusto, 870 the Toro Gordo, which is 6 by 56. and you can actually find them just under that a little bit in the Tampa area anyway.
I don't think that I've searched these out price wise. I've only ever purchased these as singles, so I've never tried to do price comparisons or anything on other My Father products. But yeah, looking at that, somewhere between $6.50 to $9 is that's a pretty good. It's actually a very good slot for these. It definitely comes in a little bit lower than the typical My Father or the Le Bijous, um, and obviously the Dom Pepin, uh, all the blue line, the black, all those, the white. It's definitely a little bit less expensive than the My Father's at least, and I think it's probably right there with those DPG releases.
Yeah, it's actually very close to what I can get the blue, the originals for.
Hmm. Well, this is I you haven't gone into a lot of your kind of basic preliminary thoughts about the cigars yet, but I'll jump in just a touch on mine, and I'll say that this has a little bit more spice than the core blue line, the Don Pepin Garcia blue line to me. Um, but I don't find it to be too much. I think a lot of people find those the Pepin branded cigars to be very spicy. I don't. I don't lose myself in the amount of spice that they have. I just think that they're one of the few cigars that's out there that really wants you to focus on that. It's not a supplemental part of the cigar. It's the main level of it. And I think that this cigar to me, which if correct me if I'm wrong, this is kind of a different opinion to what you have on it, but it's got a little bit more spice to me than the blue line, which is what I have the most familiarity with. Um,
Now, I would agree with having a little more of that typical Pepin spice than the blue line, but I don't find as much as in like the My Father number one, the Robusto, um, is one of my very favorites. Up there with this one for My Father, but sometimes those just kind of hit me wrong, and they're a little overpowering for me. A little too astringent through the nose, maybe a little bit too much of a nicotine hit if I'm not careful.
hmm,
I got to be prepared for those.
hmm, yeah, I can get that absolutely. I'm certainly not someone who ever is looking for that a nicotine buzz or a pepper bomb by any means, but I definitely know what you're saying. You got to kind of get yourself in a state of mind. Um, it might not even be a state of mind. It might actually be a physical thing. I almost feel like my palate needs to be trained a bit to get ready for those. Not so much this needs to be my second cigar of the day, but I need to be on a little bit heavier kick than I normally am. Maybe three a day, and then smoking the main My Father line just fits right in. It falls right into place. But where I'm at right now, it definitely is on kind of the upper end of where I'm comfortable, I think.
Yeah, my experience with the number one, which again is a favorite for me, I have to be feeling fairly robust. It's not a fourth or fifth cigar of the day kind of thing for me. I have to be, well hydrated, have a good blood sugar level and whatnot. I can't hit that on an empty stomach and come away feeling good about it.
Mm. Well,
It
sorry, go ahead.
I also have noticed, at least for me, that number one is prone to being a little harsh if you're not careful with your cadence.
Mm.
If I smoke those a little fast, it will just give me a raspy kind of sore throat feeling in the back of my throat, and so I savor those.
I think, yeah, I think that actually occurs more often than not for me with a lot of cigars. I feel like, as you say, the cadence, that's a great word. Um, how you approach a cigar, you in general, not you as in Kip, really has a massive effect as to what the experience is. I mean, I know a lot of guys will smoke the same cigar as me, but it'll take them half the time, and they just get, oh, I get spice, spice, spice. Yeah, that's all I get out of this cigar. And to me, I mean, it might be an incredibly complex offering, but if if you're breathing through the length of the cigar rather than enjoying it and letting it rest for 30 seconds or a minute, I definitely think that most cigars are going to behave differently in those two experiences.
I agree. There's a lot going on in that little bundle of leaves. Just through basic physics within the leaves, physiologically in your body, your mindset. And I think a lot there are a lot of things that impact what kind of experience you're going to have, even with the same cigar from day to day.
Well, you can even talk about the makeup of the cigar, the manufacture of a cigar. If you're smoking it fast, typically I would expect that you would burn um, quicker around the wrapper or the binder, or some of the filler leaves that are not as oily, and then you'd have a central core that doesn't burn as fast. And I've seen those. Oh, it's the reverse of tunneling, and people have different terms for it, but you essentially have a little cone of Lajero in the center.
Pencil,
I've seen. I'm sorry.
a pencil point.
Yeah, pencil point's a good term for it. Yeah. Um, I mean, I've seen people with as much as an inch of variation between that cone and the wrapper where the wrapper's burning. And I mean, just think about it. If the leaf throughout its length from foot to head gains in thickness and robustness because it's going from the tip of the leaf to the stem of the leaf, um, imagine how that impacts the blend if you've got an inch difference in a Robusto where you're only typically smoking 4 inches of it anyways. You're almost into the second third with the wrapper, while your central core, the Lajero of the cigar, is still just smack dab in the middle of the first third.
Hmm. You know what? What you just said about the wrapper leaf and thickness has never in 20 years occurred to me. Now I'm gonna be tangled up in my head the rest of this show and the rest of the week thinking about that.
Well, sorry, I didn't intend for that to be the case. Just
No,
kind of had one of those moments of clarity.
that's a good thing. Maybe I'll learn something.
You know what I think I did? I knew that I was going to be smoking my last Robusto Flor de las Antillas uh, today for the show, and so on Friday when I was out at that cigar store, I bought another one to replace it. Um, I think I'm smoking that one that I bought on Friday right now because it is out again, and the cigar's drawing fine. I'm getting smoke through it. I don't think there's a hole in the binder or a tear in the wrapper somewhere, which would be allowing me to draw air through that rather than down the length of the cigar. I just think the cigar is too darn wet. Um, Boy, I made a crucial mistake here, I think.
Hmm. So the shop had a little moisture in the humidor.
Don't push me to go into it yet. I'll go into it in the later segment.
Yeah, got a poke and prod. Give it a try sometime.
I know, I know. Well, I'll kind of finish off my basic wrap of this smoke, or my kickoff, I guess. By saying it's not an overpowering or galling amount of spice that this cigar has, or the pepper that it has. It's not that much more aggressive than some of the other cigars to where it becomes unapproachable. But it certainly does carve out a position as being a different cigar. And it's a good cigar with complexity, and it definitely leaves you with, as a smoker, with a lot of interest. So, and it's one that I very much enjoy. So I'm looking forward to finishing it out here.
Same here, and the excuse me, the spice in this one, unlike most of what I've had from other lines that Pepin has blended, it's not the black pepper or cayenne or one of those spicy kind of peppers. This is prototypical for what I call white pepper in a lot of reviews. It's a little lighter, little more woodsy, leathery kind of feel to a pepper flavor. I don't know how much experience you have with ground white pepper, but that's what this is what I think of. This is the epitome of what I call white pepper when I'm putting it in a review somewhere with another cigar.
I actually think that 2, 3 weeks ago, maybe, you tasked me with next time I was at the grocery store picking up a little thing of white pepper because I'm not familiar with it. And I still haven't done it. So this is yet another reason to go do that, I suppose.
You can use it interchangeably with your black pepper. It's just a little less bold.
Mm. Well, I use a product called Grains of Paradise, and it's I don't think it is actually a little peppercorn. I think it's actually a seed of some other product, but it has a little bit more floral take on the pepper flavor, although it still does have it just a little bit. So when I'm looking for a little bit lighter pepper spice, I'll go with that one instead. But I do like, because I do all the cooking at our house, see, so um, my wife is not someone who really appreciates the flavor of black pepper, and at times she doesn't even really like spicy food either. So one of the reasons that she might not be the biggest fan of spicy food is that it can impact your system a little bit. Hint, hint. And the greatest part about black pepper to me is that I can spice a dish with black pepper. When I'm sweating vegetables or when I'm letting something simmer, I can get the heat into the dish itself by adding a large amount of black pepper, and that spiciness comes across very similarly. You do get a flavor of pepper, but if you let it cook down a while, it doesn't overpower it as a black pepper flavor. You just get the spiciness, but that type of heat doesn't affect your system. Any part of your system, from when you take it in your stomach to after you've processed it, and
I have never heard that before.
it does not affect your system.
Man, I've learned two things, and we're not even halfway into this show.
I know, and I said I was off my game tonight too. So,
I don't know
man,
how you can hold all this information.
oh, don't worry. I have a terrible memory, so I'm sure in 3 or 4 weeks you'll hear it all over again. Anyways,
Well, that's great because I have a terrible memory and I won't know that I've heard it before.
so I've been spending a lot of time in the hospital and in nursing homes. I think I mentioned this last week. My grandmother was just put into a nursing home, and so we've been there a ton recently. And uh, she's aware enough to make a few jokes about the fact that she's suffering from memory loss, pretty bad memory loss. Um, so I joked with her on Saturday. I joked with her yesterday that I really envy her position because she can save a lot of money by just owning one book, and by the time she gets to the end, she forgets that she was reading it, so she can just start it right over again. And just make sure that it's a great book. So every time you get to the climax of it, you're like, man, this is amazing. Oh, I love it. You're gonna enjoy the experience. So she's like, I'm gonna do that. I'll go get my one book, and she's a big John Grisham reader. So I made sure that she had a John Grisham book. So it's kind of a goofy little thing, but
That's funny. A little bit mean, but it's funny.
no, she's right there with it too. She loved it. It's if you can't cry, you gotta laugh. So you might as well find something good to look at.
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, we got we don't necessarily have a ton of in-depth news items here, but we've got 5 or 6 we should probably get into.
Yeah, absolutely. First up on the list here, we have the Chattanooga Tweet Up, which
I was I was just gonna say the first of which I know that you're very excited about.
yeah, I was there last year. I was not at the first one. It grew exponentially last year and appears to be doing so again this year. In fact, I think they're changing the name of it to the Chattanooga Cigar Festival and Tweet Up. But it is one of my very favorite events I've ever been to. It's a little different than most. It's not a seminar, it's not a trade show, it's just a bunch of manufacturers, a bunch of other people in the industry, a bunch of consumers just hanging out for a couple of days. And they actually added a day this year. And excuse me there. It's going to be August the 1st through the 3rd. It's in Chattanooga. And I just can't say enough good things. I'm going to be there again this year. I love the fact that one of my local airports flies there very inexpensively, actually much cheaper than I can drive there, which comes in handy. But fantastic event. You're just hanging out for 3 days. You can bend the ears of any number of, especially boutique manufacturers. These are a lot of these guys don't necessarily have the capital to build, an elaborate booth or even have a booth at IPCPR, and they'll come to this show or this tweet up, and it's just a couple of weeks after IPCPR, so all the new cigars are there, all the talk, all the news, and whatnot, and it's just a great opportunity to hang out with some of those guys and get to know them a little better, and get to know them outside of those other settings where they have, a minute and a half they're going to be able to talk to you. You can sit with these guys for an hour or 2 hours and just hang out for
Hmm.
the evening, and it's 3 days long, and you can get to know a lot of people in that 3 days. And they have some other things going on that are tied to the event. I think they're taking a riverboat cigar and spirits tasting this year, and last year we did a baseball game, which was somewhat poorly planned by the management at the stadium. The event people did a great job, but we got to the stadium and they had double booked the pavilion with us, the cigar group, and the Children's Asthma Foundation, all in the booth, which made for a little discomfort, and we had to relocate the cigar smoking, but it worked out.
Oh, oh, that is really funny.
But
Oh man,
I'm
if I didn't have a microphone an inch and a half from my mouth, I'd have really let loose on that one,
yeah,
man.
that was interesting to say the least. But it's 3 days of just a ton of fun, and this year I think the event price went up a little bit, $75, but that includes a dinner. It includes the riverboat thing with the tastings. It includes a bag of cigars and T-shirt and some pretty good discounts there at Burns Tobacconist in Chattanooga, which is a large scale tobacconist by most standards. They have a couple of locations, but the primary location on the eastern part of town is incredible. They have a pool hall with, I'm going to assume or guess, 30 or so pool tables, maybe even some more.
Mhm.
Full bar, restaurant. They have convention type meeting rooms that are big enough to handle the crowd. You can get maybe 300 people in there, and that's probably the number of people that will attend, but they won't all be in the same place at the same time. They have nice rooms upstairs to just hang out and chat, and of course they have the cigar shop itself, and this is all in one big complex, and so you can go there and spend your 3 days without all the other events that are going on, just hanging out there if you want to.
Hmm.
Um, but anyway, I definitely plan on being there this year, August the 1st through the 2nd. Um, the website is chattanoogatweetup.com, and I'll include a link in the show summary this week as well.
Well, are you're definitely going? How long are you going to be staying for?
I will probably fly up there the day before and come back the day after, because the 3 days are the first day I think is the second half of the day. Not much going on in the earlier part of the day, but the thing is packed. There's something to do for the full 3 days, and Burns is open I think at 9 a.m. until the wee hours in the morning.
Well, I think that Chattanooga is not a ridiculous drive for me, and if there's a small airport in the area too, I might consider looking into pricing on that. That might be kind of fun. Maybe we could do a an on the road recording.
Yeah, there is an airport nearby. It's about 10 miles from Burns. Several hotels right there within a mile of of the tobacco shop there.
Hmm. Oh, maybe we can look into making a little road show.
Yeah, I'm
It'd
all
be
for
fun
it.
to meet up.
And like I said, most of the boutique guys, most of the prominent ones are going to be there. They already have a sponsors list out, but it's preliminary, so there will be several more added. Looks like there's maybe 25 already on there, including your buddy Jay Fuego. Um, uh,
Uh,
I know Gary Griffith will be there. Skip Martin. I'm looking down the list. These are the company names. John Huber from Crown Heads was there last year. Um, says Drew Estate. I'm not sure. I'm assuming either or both Jonathan Drew and Jose Blanco may be there. Don't quote me on that, but I think so. Miami Cigar, Barry came up last year. Jeff and Nada Jumper from Naughty Cigars. Fred Rui from Nomad. There's, like I said, there's a lot of people. It's just a great time.
Hmm. That's pretty cool. I'm gonna seriously look into that. I think it'd be pretty fun.
It was last year absolutely fun. I fully intend for it to be just as fun this year or more, and I think that's evidenced by the growth of this thing and how it's gone from, that first year. I understand there were maybe a few dozen people came up and just kind of hung out, and then last year it exploded and 300 or so people, and I think they're going to sell about 300 tickets this year. I believe you don't even have to have a ticket to just show up and hang out in the shop, buy some cigars. But the ticket gets you those things I mentioned earlier, the T-shirt, the cigars, and all that paraphernalia.
Yeah, yeah. It's nice. It's a nice low-key version of IPCPR. I think it'll kind of have a second part feel to it. As you said right in the beginning, that everybody's going to have all the new sticks that were released and be talking about a lot of the IPCPR wrap, and I'm sure for everyone else it'll be nice that or for all the manufacturers it'll be nice that it's kind of a low-key break. You can kind of just enjoy the industry rather than have to kind of furiously work on it.
Yeah, and you can get to know the person and not just what they need to tell you about their business in some other setting.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And like I said, you get the bag of cigars that's included with the event, but many of the manufacturers were anxious to let people try their new cigars because this is the first big event after IPCPR where the cigar has actually launched and they're more able to let some folks try them.
Yeah, that certainly makes sense. It's a valid point, no doubt.
Oh, and tickets go on sale April 1st.
Cool, very cool. Well, it looks like the next item we got written here isn't nearly as fun as the chat tweet up, but good old Mayor Bloomberg at it again, as you so eloquently put it. No better way. Fresh in the heels of the big old embarrassment with the courts over that whole soft drink fiasco, not allowing people to have their large sugary drinks. His loss in that arena, I'll say. He now wants to hide tobacco. I had kind of followed this a little bit as news came out this week that what he's proposing to do, and it's just kind of silly. If you haven't heard, folks, he's essentially wanting to remove all all tobacco from being visible in locales. It's again one of these, we're going to save the children and we're going to do what's best for people, but there's not everybody out there who wants him to make that decision for us. We'll put it that way. So,
yeah. He's done quite a few things that are what I would brand as silliness. This one, though, I think is a knee-jerk. I took a beating in court. I'm going to do something even more silly than normal, because there's any number of age-regulated products out there that are in plain sight every day. But somehow we think tobacco is contaminating our kids just at its site. So another thing from New York City that I don't understand. I don't get it at all. But what scares me is what we said a couple of weeks ago. Whenever something like this takes place in New York or California, much of the rest of the country soon follows. I just don't want to see that.
Well, I think the logic is kind of a pendulum effect. The further we push, that'll become the norm, and the further we'll be able to the further it'll go on the other side. And so as we come back the next time with our real intentions, they won't be as crazy as this, but we'll get something less because they'll be worried about it being this strict or this extensive. And I'm just obviously postulating. I have no real idea what it is that the main goal here is, but the fact of the matter is that we can't be willing to sacrifice on this or compromise and say, well, at least it's not that, so we'll just let him do it so he goes away. The fact of the matter is This is not going to go away. This fight that we have, it's going to stay, and this battle might end, but it's going to become something else. There's no doubt about it, and it's silly. It is absolute silliness, as you put it.
Yeah, and he doesn't even want to hide tobacco advertising, which further confounds me. He's okay with the advertising being in the window. He just doesn't want the product shown. He wants it hidden, behind a cabinet door or under a counter or somewhere like that. And uh, it's ludicrous. I don't want to say any more. I'm going to end up losing our rating on iTunes.
Well, the next thing you've got listed in here is the Traditional Cigar Manufacturing and Small Business Jobs Preservation Act of 2013. It's now labeled as HR 792.
Yeah, this is basically a name change, and this news came out a couple of weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks now, and it's not anything earth-shattering. It's just with the changeover in class of Congress, where quite a few people were not reelected or have resigned or retired or whatever, and they've just taken the existing bill that CRA has been pushing and trying to get the support to pass it as law to protect the cigar industry. Has just changed names, has a different, or same name, I guess, a different number, a new bill number, which means they have to go through the process again of raising support and making sure we still have all the same people on board and continue to work on getting more people on board. And if you want the full story on this, we don't need to spend a lot of time because it's a simple change. We just want to keep it in front of people's eyes and make sure we're all aware of what's going on. But I'll link to the press release on the show summary as well on the Cigar Me.
Well, the next news is something that we talked about a few weeks back, but it's it's a nice FYI to know that the L'Atelier, I believe that's how I should be pronouncing it, L'Atelier 46, Lat 46, it has begun hitting the shelves of retailers around, and I think you're right. You've got here that it should be out fully very shortly. And I think that that is correct. I think that I heard something stating that by mid-April it's going to be fully out. So
Right, it began hitting shelves this past Monday, the 19th, I think, with some select retailers, and it's going to be everywhere. And I'm a big fan of these. I have one right here in front of me. That's my next cigar tonight, L'Atelier. I have not had a chance to try the 46. I believe it's the same plant, same wrapper, just they're going to use higher primings, so it'll look a little darker, maybe be a little more flavorful a little more flavor from the wrapper. But that size is much more along the lines of what I normally reach for than the other three. The initial Vitolas were, I think a 52, 54, 56.
we can add that to the discussion about the cigar store later on. I was asked, "What do you normally smoke?" And I said, "Well, I smoke a variety of things, but I prefer small ring gauges." "Oh, what do you mean, like a 50?" All right, I'm just gonna let it go. That's all right.
That was funny. Like,
Anyways,
well, this guy's been into cigars for the last 3 years.
I don't know. I'm stewing right now. This is gonna make for better radio. We just need to kind of stoke the fire every little bit, and then it'll be a nice little segment that we got coming up.
I'll keep poking the tiger. Well, that sounded a little off color. Didn't mean it that.
Well, on that note, Gary Griffith, we all know. I won't quite say friend of the show, but certainly frequent subject of things that we've discussed on the show. He posted a picture on Twitter and Facebook and all around this weekend, I believe, and he stated, "This is the Kappa for the drag for 2013, the Cayaquero." And if you follow the link, you get to see bales of what is very clearly labeled Arapayaka. Arapayaka. You know what I'm saying. Give me a break.
Araparaca.
Arapayaka. Okay, we'll go with that one. So this, I know, made you very excited, as rightly so. I know this is something you enjoy.
It is. I love that wrapper leaf. It's on the Herrera biography, which is one of my absolute favorite 2 or 3 cigars of 2012. Skip Martin uses it on part of his Intemperance line. All of those that have BA on the name. Oha has an Oscuro with it. That the newer Primer Mundo uses that wrapper, and it is a definite trend that I like that leaf, and I was excited to see that it was going to be on yet another cigar for me to dig up.
The I think it was one of the Houston IPCPRs. So I think 2007. Yeah, 2007 sounds right. That was the first that I ever tried Arapayaca wrapper on a cigar, and I don't remember what it was. I think it may have been a Donna Flor, but I'm not 100% positive. And I just remember saying, "Oh man, this is what I'm looking for." Not so much that I love the flavor that comes from that wrapper. I love the fact that it brings a different characteristic to cigars. Um, it just has a very unique flavor or presentation, how it comes across, the spice that's with it, that flavor, that depth that it adds to a stick. It made me very pleased to know that somebody was branching out and doing something with some different tobacco, getting a little bit different depth or a little bit different flavors to the cigars. So,
There's a good chance it was Donna Flor because normally that leaf comes out of Brazil.
hmm
I think it's even named after a Brazilian town, community, some location down there.
well, there you go.
And we had another.
Maybe
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say maybe I'm not as crazy tonight as I normally am.
And we had one more news item from Gary. Actually, one more total, and it happens to be from Gary. He announced, announced Thursday night, put a little more information up Friday that he's going to have another line or another cigar that's going to be released this summer at IPCPR, the Mia Dora, which is a lady he has fallen deeply for. Dora is her name, and took a trip with her to Italy and saw some of her ancestral homes and all. But he's has put up since a little more detail about it. Trying to open the link here, and I posted all of this information on the Cigar Me a couple of days ago when the news came out. And Gary has a blog called From Seed to Smoke where he put the full backstory on where the name came from and all, and it's kind of a good read. Gary Griffith, for those of you that don't know him well, everything in the world of Emilio cigars, Gary Griffith is Emilio cigars. Everything has a meaning. He's very symbolic in all he does with the names and the artwork and everything that goes into his cigars, which is kind of a cool thing to me. I get a little geeked out sometimes just getting the backstory on some of these things. But you can check that out on my site, and it links to his blog to get the full scoop. But it's all out there. I'm excited for this one. I didn't have just a whole ton of information about the components of the blend. He didn't actually say a whole lot about it. He did put up a prototype for some of the artwork, but knowing my affinity for the cigars that he's affiliated with, I'm excited that there's going to be at least 2 more this year. And last year was a banner year for Emilio. The growth was exponential, and they put out quite a few new cigars and picked up distribution on, I don't know, 8 to 10 more maybe. And I'm a big fan of greater than 90% of those, and not just a big fan in the sense that, yeah, I got one, 2, tried it, did a review. These are cigars that I go out of my way to find and purchase myself. I really like most of what his hands have been on for cigars.
I love, this little quote that you've got here. There's quite a story behind this cigar and how it came to be. You should probably buy some tissues. I just love that. It's a side of Gary that I I didn't really know Gary or know of him. I knew he was the Emilio guy a year ago, before IPCPR last year. Maybe even longer than that, maybe 2 years ago. But I just thought he was another guy in the industry. And probably in the last 9, 10 months, actually, I bet since last year's Dogwatch Herf, I've really kind of sought out a lot of his social media presence. You can go on there and follow his links, and then all of a sudden you get to his blog or his website, and you can go on there and just look at the string of communication that he's had with people, or his upcoming information that he's posting and telling you about, like this situation that we're talking about with the Miadora too. Um, I just love that he's got a a happy persona to him. I mean, I hate to put it in such a simplistic way, but I look up and I involve myself in what he puts out there for the world to read, and I enjoy it. There's a lot of things about the cigar industry that piss me off, and Gary wipes some of that BS away. I know it sounds kind of silly, but he's a good person to seek out and to look for his communication, and to really find out why he's distributing some of the people he's distributing, why he's making some of the cigars that he's making or has made. It's uh, oftentimes, as you say, there's a reason for it, and it's a good one.
Yeah, and he actually just launched Emilio Cigars, I believe, in 2011, and didn't go maybe 6 months before he really kind of took hold and got out there. And I call him the king of cigar social media because the guy is everywhere and just constant updates. He is the most accessible cigar company owner, rep, manufacturer guy out there. If you want to ask him a question, it's as simple as a couple of mouse clicks, and you got contact with him. And for anybody that makes it to Chattanooga, you'll have the opportunity to chat him up a little bit, and it's just a great way to spend an afternoon chatting with him. He's got a really good story. He went through some rough times several years ago and came out of that with as positive and a good attitude about life in general as any person I've ever met. He's one of the good guys.
Yeah, good way to put it. Well, so what other cigars you've been enjoying recently, my man?
Oh man, you kind of see my long list sometimes, but this is, I trim this down quite a bit actually to the what have I got, 5 or 6 on there still. Um, and actually, the first one is a cigar that was given to me at the Tweet Up last year. Rick Ardito with K.A. Kendall Cigars, Kurt Kendall's line of cigars, gave me an upcoming stick they have coming out, and it may already even be out. I haven't seen it on the shelf. I know it's due out now or sometime soon. Just called the Spider. It's one single Vitola. It's a 5 3/4 by 52 cigar. Nicaraguan wrapper, Ecuador binder, Nicaraguan Honduran, Colombian filler blend. And I lit the thing up. The first few minutes were a little bit grassy, which sounds awful. It's not as bad as it sounds, but that just immediately dissipated, and it turned to this really nice sweetness with I put an oat-like grain flavor, just a generic oats kind of grainy taste to it. And from there, by the time I got to the end of that thing, I had this really strong black tea, the bergamot, and that actually can be pronounced either way. The orange compound that you can find in Earl Grey tea and some of the other English teas were just so strong there. I don't care for iced tea, but I love hot tea, and I like that in a cigar as well. And had moderate spice, so it was not overpowering at all. Not even a strong burn with a good solid retrohale. Just one of those cigars that, again, I would call a comfort cigar. It was just a very nice smoke, a good way to spend an afternoon.
Well, I like a lot of the stuff from 724. A lot of those lines, or a lot of that line, excuse me, specifically. So it'll be nice to give a try to these Spider. I really like some of the alternative tobacco we're seeing used somewhat recently. I think last week or the week before we had something that had Panamanian tobacco in it, and then now with Colombian. I've heard good things about Colombian tobacco. Actually, um, I know that Colombians are typically extremely proud um, of anything relating to their country. They have a lot of um, how do I put this without sounding like I'm making generalizations? Let's just say a lot of pride. And so I know the upcoming um, use of Colombian tobacco in a few cigars has been something that at least one gentleman I know of has been very excited about. And I didn't even know that this cigar was going to have Colombian in it, but I'll look forward to it and give it a shot. I've had it once in the past, um, and it really does round out a cigar very nicely, I think. So this would be pretty unique.
It does, and I have the same guy we talked about within the past couple of weeks, a local mom and pop, actually a son and pop organization or cigar family here locally in just north of Tampa, and he will occasionally produce some cigars, maybe a couple of times a year, once a quarter or so. That he it goes by any number of names. They're huge. They're like 11 inches long and a 64 ring,
Hmm.
which sounds outrageous, and I would never in my life pick that up, but I tried it. And he uses a couple of different tobaccos in those. Sometimes it's Colombian, sometimes it's Costa Rican. And the Colombian, I get this really sweet, nice, calm citrus kind of flavor out of that, and I love those things. I always grab a few when he's got some made up.
Hmm. That's unique. I'd have to find a special place to put them in my humidor. I couldn't fit anything 11 inches long.
I call them the donkey legs.
It's a little bit more family friendly than the more oft used term for cigars of that size.
Exactly.
You got another Romeo on here.
I do. I had a number four, that little, I guess it's a Petit Corona, that somebody had given me. I don't know, it's been a year or two ago now. I have no idea how old the cigar was. I can't, no year, nothing. He just gave it to me, and I pulled that thing out this week, and just like every other one I've had, it was a fantastic cigar. It was well made, well built, it smelled nice, it tasted nice. It was just nothing bad about that experience. And with that number four has been the same. I haven't had that many of them, but all of those I've had have led me to think I should go out of my way to find some more.
Hmm. Now this is not the Exhibition number four, right? This is just the Romeo number four.
Just a Romeo number four.
Interesting. I don't know if I've ever had that cigar.
I may be wrong. It's in a little. It's a tubo. That's all I can tell you.
Really?
Oh, wait. Time out. First one was a tubo. Second one was not. And it may have been, but it was given to me without the tube. If it was,
Hmm.
it just has the normal little brown, or not brown, um,
Red.
red band on it.
Interesting. I'll have to seek that out. I have to admit, I'm not usually the biggest fan of Romeos. I went through a stage a dozen years ago or so where I smoked a lot of the vintage, um, and woke up and kind of branched out a little bit from there, and haven't really gone back very much. I've had some, but
Stop the presses.
I'm sorry.
Stop the presses. I, I completely mistyped the notes, and I'm digging through my bands here from this past week, and it is a Monte Cristo number four.
Okay.
It is a brown band. I was like, I thought that thing was brown, so I grabbed my pile of bands here from the past week, and sure enough, it is a Monte Cristo number four.
All right. Amani number four is a cigar that I've heard of. So there you go. All right. That makes a lot more sense.
I guess I should fix that before I at least put it in the show somewhere. Huh?
Well, that's all right. We'll let you slide there. That's your one mistake for today.
I told you I don't know anything about these southern cigars.
Uh, well, I'll take this moment while you're updating the notes a little bit to talk about a really great cigar that I had this week. I had a Punch Churchill, so I'm not usually a smoker of cigars this size. I I don't find that I've got 2 hours just sitting around doing nothing when I'm not devoting them to recording this show or being a dad or a husband or working or something. But I had a lot of work to do after hours at my house this week, and so I needed to read through 100 pages of reviews of some stuff and pulled out a big cigar, and it just happened to be this Churchill. So, oh, pardon me. No, I've got the hiccups. This is one heck of a lovely cigar from Havana. Punch is a line that I never really crave, but always seem to enjoy. Um, the Churchills tends to get a little bit of a bad rap, but this one, for me, proves both those thoughts wrong. I, I absolutely will crave this cigar, and it is 100% not deserving of negative opinions that tend to be out there in cyberspace, at least. It's so complex, it was distracting from what I was trying to read through, honestly. Although the work manuals and boring stuff that I was doing. Nutty, sweet tobacco with a typical punch whiskey-like tanginess. Caramel, sweet spice, an orange peel or orange zest flavor that kind of permeated your mouth and just perked it up a little bit. And an absolutely breathtaking room aroma. I left to go to the restroom at one point, came back a couple minutes later, and was just blown away by how good the room smelled. I almost contemplated just smoking the cigar, um, puffing on the cigar enough to just let it really let go a ton of that smoke off the foot of the cigar, but I couldn't put the cigar itself down, so I kept smoking through it, and it was darn good. This was a single that I had kept in my assorted bag, and I think it was from '02, if I remember right, so it had 10 years of age on it plus, so it was a splendid offering, and really an often a splendid offering from what really is an often overlooked cigar, and an often overlooked production year. It really came through and shined. Oh man, it was a good one. I almost sent you one of the others that I had, but it had already been cut, so I didn't send it.
That's okay. I'll just
Oh,
hold it over your head for what could have been.
well, do you want a cigar that I cut to check to see if it was if it had a good draw, so my lips had been on it already?
I suppose I can wait for one that's not cut.
Yeah, it's probably true. I don't think the idea of antibacterial spray or gel would go too well on the head of a cigar. Well, and I'll jump in here and kind of continue on. The next one is just it's a real quickie. It's another Cane Daytona, the 6" by 46 rain gauge version of these cigars. Um, I talked about these before. I love the pure Nicaraguan flavor that you get out of these. A great mix of old school and new school combined to me. Um, Seek them out. I'm not a overly strong cigar smoker, um, nicotine strength, but man, these don't tend to be out of balance at all, in my opinion. They're really a great smoke. I think they've got a Daytona Lancero. Is that correct?
And I think that may have been an event cigar. I don't think it's regular production if they do.
I believe you're correct on that. I remember Bob McDuffie saying that he had gone to a release party for these, I think, and he had gotten some Lanceros, and he has. I have absolutely no way of conveying how jealous I am of him for having had those at one point. I think this would be spectacular in a really small ring.
I was at that event. That was the first time I ever met Bob McDuffie.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
he drove over to Tampa Humidor for that event, and I happened to be there as well that night.
Hmm. Well, you don't happen to have any of those Lanceros left, do you?
I don't. I didn't even get any to start with.
Ah,
I am not usually a Kane fan, but the one you just mentioned, the 646, that is by far my favorite from them. I like that one a lot.
yes, sir. All
Uh,
right. Well, I suppose I'll let you get back to what you were talking about.
I just had a couple more to mention here. The Viaje Super Shot 12 gauge. I really like these. You know, it sounds funny. I like these because they're small, and I've already forgotten his name. Andre, is it Andre Farkas or
Yes.
wanted something small enough he could smoke between rounds of trap shooting. I guess he likes to shoot with a shotgun. and he came up with this idea to size these similarly to shotgun shells. And this one I had this week was a 12 gauge. And last year they put just out a single offering of these, two sizes, but a single blend, single wrapper, and it was a Criollo. And this year they put out that same Criollo and a Corojo that took the original blend and toned it down a little bit, kind of knocked the edges off, and they hit a home run as far as I'm concerned. It is a much more approachable, palatable, smoother smoking kind of cigar, and I really like these. And despite the fact that they're the price of a normal full-size cigar, I like them a lot. They're a great cigar any time of the day. I like them in the morning because I'm usually a little more rushed if I got to do something in the morning. It's Nicaraguan Puro, and it has that typical Nicaraguan kind of spiciness that you get with it, but there's an overlaying or an overarching sweetness just throughout that cigar, and they're very small, maybe 3 inches or so long. It's just a good smoke for when you got an hour, rather than 2 hours. And I absolutely love the packaging on these things. They come in a little cardboard box that is marked up and shaped and sized just like the old style shotgun shell boxes when you go buy a box of rounds for your shotgun. I love that packaging.
I don't think I've ever even seen those in a store.
Yeah, they're not especially plentiful, and as with everything else that Viaje does these days, they're all small batch releases now.
Yeah,
So unless you have a shop that carries a lot of Viaje, you may not see those at all. I see. I think I picked these up last time I was in South Florida, maybe at a smoke in, but I know Tranquilo carries Viaje, and they usually have a good selection. One of my local shops down in Tampa, Cigar Castle, carries them as well. But the thing with Viaje, every time you go to the shop, you're going to have something different. You're not going to have the same line all the time. So if you find one you like a lot, you better buy what you can.
Buy what you can and then cryovac them.
Yeah, exactly. And I have one more that I had this week that really struck a chord with me, and it was the Asylum 13, which is one of Christian Eiroa's new lines after leaving Camacho. Even though I believe Camacho is still making his cigars, at least some of them, the CLEs maybe. He's got 3 different banners or company names. I'm not sure how this actually works behind the scenes with these companies. The CLE, which is his namesake, those were his initials, Linwood and Asylum. And the Asylum 13, I tried it on a whim. I picked up a couple of them, and I'm not sure if it was just such a great cigar. It was great to me at the time, but it may have been tempered by the fact that I didn't have really huge expectations. I didn't have bad expectations. I just didn't know what to expect. It was the first time I picked them up, and man, it was a great smoke again. And I feel silly saying all these are great smokes, but that's what makes my list every week, was something that jumped out as better than norm. Sitting here looking at my own notes, saying they're made by Naxai, who formerly produced J.C. Newman cigars in Nicaragua, the non-Fuente cigars, before they built their own factory. But these are they're Nicaraguan Puro with a Bono, got that right, wrapper.
Well done.
Yeah. Hey, that's the only time tonight I'm going to get that right, so I got to keep the first one, I smoked 2 of these this week, and the first one, and I'm hopefully not putting this out in a bad way that there was too much variation, but the first one was just remarkably sweet. I mean, the sweetness that I rarely encounter in a cigar. The last time I had this type of sweetness was in the Torano Master Maduro when it first came out. And I loved that so much, I went back and bought a box, and I never found it again. And I don't know what was different, what changed in that cigar or changed in my mind, but I have been searching for that flavor again. And there was another blogger out there. He goes by GC Puffs. He is no longer blogging. He sold or handed off his site to somebody else, but he called that flavor sassafras. And when he did, it instantly struck home from my young days as a Boy Scout making a tea with the roots from a sassafras tree,
Hmm.
and that was a very good descriptor that didn't even occur to me, but it was dead on. And this was as close to that as I've come since first encountering in that Tarano. Um, but man, it was so good. And the second one had the same similar family or palette of flavors, but maybe not to the same degree. But still a very good cigar. And in Tampa, you can get these things for $5 or a little less per stick, and they're a good cigar for a good price, and definitely worthwhile. And I will be getting more of them for sure.
Well, that's the perfect example of why I love reviewing a cigar in a group or with someone else, or doing exactly what you did, reading through someone else's review and then using it to be able to elaborate on your own. Just
Yeah, I didn't even read his.
sometimes.
I don't even know that he wrote a review. I think he just put a tweet up and or posted a tweet that said that, and I was like, that's pretty dang close to what I think it is too.
Hmm. Yeah, there you go. Well, you got down here that they've also got an extension coming for the line.
Yeah, they posted up a notice on their Facebook page that they're going to have a new line coming, the Asylum 13, which is the name of this one, the Asylum 13 Authentic Corojo, with a wrapper from the El Corojo farm. Um, Christian's dad, Julio, is growing that wrapper leaf, and it's going to be initially available in a Robusto and a 6x60. The Robusto is what I had of this original line this week. MSRP is $5.10 to $6.10, so still going to be in that same ballpark for pricing. I think he even said he was leaving the door open, had no official plans or releases or anything queued up, but for a 70 ring cigar, which is just beyond me. But I guess there are people that like them, people that want them. So the demand is there; they should make them.
Yeah, well, I don't know about should make them. No, no, no. If it's what folks want, it's what folks want.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's still a business. If you have customers that want something and you're able to make it and make a profit on it, by all means, they should do it.
Well, that brings us on to what else we've been enjoying in the world of cigars lately. The much discussed, much hinted segment that I wanted to get into a little bit here.
I'm going to sit up in my seat for this.
Well, I was going to say, like all good hosts, I'm going to postpone it until the end of what we're doing. So we do have a couple listener emails here. Um, and the first of which I'll take. I'll take the one from Bruce. And Bruce Stark, more commonly known as Andex by many of you from the old Dog Watch days, sent us an email this week. And among other things in it, he asked, I know that in order for cigar stores now to be able to sell Essentia, they have to carry the Paleo cutters. But now that Tarano is going to be handling their line and being able to put it in more stores, or at least have it open to more stores, the Essentia line, that is, will they be able to sell those cigars without selling the Paleo as well? And I don't really know. I think that that's a great question for Mark. Mark Obb, one of the owners and founders of Brothers of the Leaf LLC, the makers of the Paleo and the Essentia and the E. I think we can shoot him an email and try to get an answer for this. That'd be a nice and simple one to wrap up for you. Because I'm also interested too. It would make a lot of sense, and I would love to be able to see the Essentia in more locations, especially if it becomes something that a Tarano account would be able to get you.
Yeah, I have the same interest. I listened all this time to Bob and Dale and you and a number of other folks speak highly of the Essentia, but I don't have a single shop anywhere within 100 miles that I can find that sells those cigars.
Boy, that's a shame. Have you had them?
I don't believe I have.
Wow. Oh man, I wish we would have talked about this before I got your package all ready to send out. It's a shame. Great cigars. Great, great cigars.
I
I'll
think we're going to feature those sometime this summer, I believe, and I will try to dig some up before then.
Perfect. Well, the I know that I did send you an E, which is the new release from Brothers of the Leaf. But the Essentia, their original release, I think came out in 2008. Wow, 5 years now. Unbelievable. Um, that's just a great, great cigar. Just a spectacular, deep, sweet fruit and tobacco core to that cigar. Really, really love it. So it's something that I'll definitely seek out for my own knowledge and be more than happy to share with the listeners here and specifically with the Andex. So
Cool. Well, our other email we wanted to talk about was from Ed Trask, and he says, I was interested in the CFCF 2012 event you attended last year. Is this event open to the public? Can you make a donation to go on the trip? Would you be so kind as to give me a little more detail about the trip? I've made donations to CFCF over the last 2 years, but that trip sounds like a once in a lifetime opportunity. Well, it is a wonderful opportunity. It's not necessarily once in a lifetime. They seem to have developed a pattern of doing these most years, if not every year, down there now. There is no requirement to make a certain donation or anything to go on the trip, um, but there's a couple of things that tie to the foundation. There's two purposes for this trip. One, it's for the people who do donate to the foundation and have some affiliation with it to go down and visit and see how things are going and have a refreshed idea about how the foundation's operating. But it's also to showcase the foundation, to let people know what they're doing and how successful it is, and that you can see the dollars at work. It's not just money going into some big gray area and you never know if it's being stewarded well or not. But to go on the trip, they announce this usually somewhere around October every year to the people that have been before, and open the ticket sales. And then after a couple of weeks, it's open to anybody. And they post up notices and links on the CFCF Facebook page. They have a mailing list where they'll send out emails if you're on the list when the tickets are available. Um, the ticket price itself is $295, and that includes the vast majority of your food while you're there. You do pick up a couple of meals. You're on your own while you're in the country, but for the most part, the meals are arranged. All of your transportation from the Santiago airport. Don't make the mistake I made one year of thinking it'd be cool to drive across the country. Uh, Definitely want to fly into Santiago. They'll pick you up there, shuttle you everywhere you need to be. You don't need transportation anytime while you're there. It includes some really nice cigars they'll hand out, quite a few actually. That for the most part, many of those are early releases or they're one-offs that they don't market, they don't sell at retail. The majority of the cigars that we get while we're there are either not available at retail or they're only at charity events, those kind of things. Some opportunities to try cigars that you may not ever see otherwise. Um, so you got the $295 for the trip, and then you got to get your own your own airfare down and back, and your hotel while you're there. But they arrange for a block of rooms and get a really good deal on the rooms. So it actually, all in all, it's a very inexpensive trip, relatively speaking, to some of the others. But more and more and more, it's always been about seeing the foundation and the kids and how they're doing and all. And you see the same kids every year and how they've grown and changed. But more so with every passing year, it's just simply not about the cigars. It's just a great chance to see actual differences made in these lives who come from a place and a background where they essentially have nothing. They're barely getting by to live and don't have clean water and a good steady food supply, and just to see the change taking place is really cool and definitely worthwhile. Next year, already been announced, it'll be in the Dominican. Um, they put out a special fundraising. It's a little 4 cigar sampler with some really nice cigars in it that comes in a nice little wooden travel humidor that's nicely decorated with opus symbology and whatnot. And this year, if you buy that, there's a little entry form in there you can sign and send in, and they're giving away a trip down for the CFC next year. Some lucky person that buys that is going to go on their dime next year.
Hmm. Well, I, it, my father-in-law. This is related. Trust me. My father-in-law is kind of one of those guys who is impossible to give presents for, or to give presents to give gifts, to purchase gifts. Um, he just, if there's something he wants, he just always ends up getting it at some point. And um, the biggest problem is that he's not somebody who wants a lot of things. He's a very blessed man and recognizes that. So last year, or the year before, I decided, well, you know what? For Christmas, I'm gonna do something that I know he'll really appreciate. I'm going to donate money on his behalf to the charitable foundation, Cigar Family Charitable Foundation. So um, I had made the decision to send it to CFCF because I had done a little bit of research previously for myself on charities that I felt would be worthy of receiving my donations, my heartfelt, very hard worked money that I earned myself and would like to share and see that as much positive can come from that as can be. And so I started doing some searching on some independent charity reviewers, and I forget the exact amount, but I think it's somewhere around 25 cents a dollar is recommended. No more than 25 cents a dollar is recommended to be spent on the administrative use for of a charity. Um, so out of every dollar, 75 cents at least should go towards um, the core reason or the core research of whatever that charity is seeking to help. Um, and Cigar Family Charitable Foundation gives absolutely 100%. $1 of every $1 given goes to make a difference in somebody's life, and that's a pretty special thing. The Fuente and Newman families cover all the administrative costs, all their administrative responsibilities, and see to it that that charity runs and can change the lives of people in that country. And they do a damn good job of it, and they
Yeah,
have continued to.
they do, and you're exactly right with the 100% thing. The out of their own personal pockets, the Fuente and Newman families foot the bill for all the marketing and administrative costs and all that. And, it's a secular organization. It's not tied to a specific religious group, but it does meet all those same standards if you're looking for a tax deduction or whatever. But I speak very highly of them, and more so every time I go down and see it. I just continue to be impressed every time we go down there. This was our third trip down this past year.
Hmm. Well, it's if you need another reason to make a decision when you're at a cigar store, and for that decision to be a Fuente, this is another good reason to do that. So, well, and speaking of cigar stores, one of the things that I really want to talk about in this segment is how much a good cigar store can improve your experience, and how much a bad cigar store can ruin your experience of a cigar. So, luckily enough for the sake of my conversation here, I put down my Flor de las Antillas after smoking about an inch of it. I put it down because I purchased it at a cigar store on Friday, um, and it was quite possibly the worst cared for humidor I've ever been in. Um, I walked in and immediately almost slipped on the floor. The tiles were so wet from all the moisture in the room. Um, then I right after that noticed, boy, there's a rather strong aroma in this room. That's interesting. And then I started looking at the cigars, and I realized that every single box of cigars had signs of moisture damage, if not mold. A lot of the lids of the boxes were completely warped. The boxes themselves were contorted and twisted slightly. Uh, they had 858 sun-growns. They still had a box of 858 sun-growns. Clearly, they'd been sitting on the shelf for a little while because the cellophane that the cigars were in had an incredible amount of mold growing on it. Just the white puffy mold. I mean, this isn't an incredibly uh, detrimental blue mold or something that you'll see in other arenas. It's just absolutely a shame that a gorgeous humidor such as this humidor was probably 10, 12-foot ceilings, 15 by 15, so 225 square feet, and it probably had $20,000 of millwork, custom millwork, cabinetry, shelving, built-ins, islands in this humidor, and I will never go back into this store.
Yeah,
Um,
you lost me at moldy sun-grown 858s. It makes me want to punch somebody in the throat.
I, I, oh, it just was such a shame. I mean, and then the shopkeep who, did what most guys do. He followed me into the humidor, uh, proceeded to ask, so what do you like to smoke? You smoke anything in particular? And I told him that, oh, I said this earlier. I said, I'll generally smoke anything. I like a wide range, but I prefer small ring gauge. And the gentleman asked me if 50 ring gauge was what I meant by that. Um, so he then recommended the house blend cigar, which was one absolutely great thing that he did. I love it when I can go into a store and the first thing that they recommend to me is their house blend. It tells me that the shop usually has a lot of integrity. They care about presenting their name, and they really want to get into tobacco. They have taken the time to create a blend, to put their name on something, and have that represent who they are. Um, and and then I asked the gentleman, okay, well, you tell me about the cigar. Where's it from? And he said the Dominican. And I said, okay, well, what kind of tobacco does he have in it? Dominican tobacco. Okay. Well, do you have any information about it, or anything you can share? And he's like, oh, well, I think there's a flyer around here somewhere. Yeah. And so he finds like a little stand that's got some information about the cigar. And the wrapper is Sumatran, the filler is Nicaraguan, and the binder is Honduran. And there's, I presume it's a double binder, Honduran and Dominican. So it had a Dominican binder to it. Um, mind you, he had just described the cigar as Dominican. Um, and he said, "Oh, well, I learned something every day. I guess didn't even realize it wasn't a full Dominican cigar." All right, that's fine. So, I lit up this Flor de las Antillas today, and quickly realized after it went out twice within the first 5 minutes that something was wrong, and it didn't taste identical to the ones I had had in the past. And as I got into it a little bit, the very very woody flavor that I got on the initial um, flavors from this cigar quickly turned into a disgusting mildew hinted um, basic flavor. And I've said it in the past. I'm not somebody who'll smoke a cigar to just smoke a cigar. Um, if I'm not enjoying it, there's no reason to have it. That's the only reason why I smoke cigars, for enjoyment. Um, and so I put it down, and man, oh man, it really pissed me off. So I I'm not I'm not trying to make anybody lose business or cause any problems, but the humidor in Downers Grove, Illinois, is not a place that I will ever go back. And there's too many terrible things that happened in a 5-10 minute cigar store trip. Um, that's just upsetting.
You
No.
don't expect to pick up a couple of cigars and come away with a pulmonary yeast infection or something.
Well, I spent $40 at the shop too. I found cigars that were in cellophane, or um, I picked cigars from not on top. I took a couple layers off and got to the cigars underneath. Expected them to be okay, and just not the case, unfortunately. So I did buy one of those 858 Sun-Growns from the bottom of the box, and uh, it upsets me. I don't know. I have a feeling that was another wasted purchase, but I'll be completely honest. The guy did give me one of the cigars for free that I bought. I bought maybe half a dozen, something like that. But um, and he was a nice guy. He was very kind. But I want my tobacconist to help me in the situation, not give me bad information. I want my cigar store to sell cigars that I enjoy smoking and not cigars that I put out after a half an inch. And um, I want people who talk to new cigar smokers every day or someone who's buying a cigar as a gift. I want them to not taint the image of what a good cigar and a great tobacconist can be. Because you can really turn somebody off if this was the first cigar that they had ever had. They'd think, oh, just cigars just have a weird flavor. I don't really like them, and that's unfair. It's doing my father a disservice. If I had never had one of those before, and I was one of the people who would smoke one cigar and generate an opinion about the cigar, it would be very unfortunate for them. And it's silly to me that someone owns a business and devotes their livelihood to something they clearly either know so little about or care so little about. It's frustrating.
Yeah, it sounds like this guy needs to get in contact with Jorge Armenteros.
I don't know if he's even able to be helped, um, and it's such a shame because it's clearly a new development that the shop is in. It's right across the street from the train station. Literally, you could stand in the front door and throw a cigar butt and hit a train, and it's just such a shame that a new shop that has had so much money and effort put into it is just wasted.
This is a new shop.
Oh, it's got to be. I mean, the building that it's in can't be any more than 5, 6 years old. There's still some vacancies in the building itself, and um, it it definitely has the feel of more recent development and how it's kind of set up to be more walkable and not car oriented. There's like a little centralized courtyard theme, which has been kind of an architectural and development based theme in the last 10 years or so. More walkable, less parking lot oriented.
Right.
But I don't know. It's a pain in the butt. It's a shame, really.
Yeah, there was a similar scenario in Tampa. There was a shop I used to go to quite a bit when I worked in the area, and the guy went through a string of personal setbacks and troubles, and was a one man show. So every minute the shop was open, he had to be there,
Hmm.
and he just got so burned out that he let everything go, and he would walk in his humidor, and it would be something like what you're describing. He just humidity was wildly out of control. There was mold on cigars, and he had begun some construction and stopped that, so the place was half constructed,
Jeez.
and it was in rough shape the last time I was there. I'm not even sure if he's still there.
Hmm. Well, it's just a shame. I mean, you never know all the details when you just walk into a shop for the first time. I mean, who knows? Was the guy, did something happen to the guy and he's not able to watch over the store, and so it's just in the hands of his employees, or, does he truly not know what is going on there? I mean, I guess the world's, there's any number of possibilities. It's just a shame that what is happening is actually happening. But and it pisses me off because I mean it was I was very excited to find a new cigar store very close to an addition I'm working on right now, and thought, hey, if I'm ever here and it's around lunch, I'll just go here, grab a sandwich, and eat it in the shop. No big deal. It's nice to hang out at a cigar store. But I won't go back. There's no chance I'll go back. So a great cigar store can make or break an evening, and it can make or break your experience, even subsequently after you've left the shop. I put this cigar out way too soon. That sucks.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
But
Well, what did you think about the latter portion of the other Flor Antillas?
Well, the other item that I've got listed here for the that I've been enjoying in the world of cigars lately is um, I took some time. My mom's been in town, as I had mentioned. Uh, I believe I had mentioned it. So um, this week I set aside some time to spend with her, and she had really wanted to see the movie version of Les Mis. And so it's out to be rented now, and so I rented a copy of it and watched it and smoked a cigar while we were watching it, and I forgot how much I enjoy kicking back with a good cigar and letting it be a companion to you um, when you're being entertained. You know, be it a sporting event or a movie or a good book. Man, I love that how a cigar can just enhance some form of entertainment. It made what I think was a pretty good movie, very well acted and a beautiful story and um, an all around good flick. I think it made it a little bit more enjoyable of experience than otherwise would have deemed a musical. Not being the biggest fan of musicals, but either way, it was a good night.
Cool. Well, that kind of made up for your trip to the other store.
Yeah, it definitely did, no doubt about it. So it was the same night. So
Cool.
well, I can't contribute too much more to this experience with our cigar of the week here. So you kind of want to wrap it up a little bit as we start to come to a close with the show here tonight.
Sure, I have now put mine down. You can kind of see in the camera there. I had about as much left as you got through in yours, and it was another great experience. I put into the notes that the only very, very minor, hardly worth mentioning, but being that kind of guy, I will. Uh, the only minor negative thing I've ever had with this particular cigar is on occasion it can become very drying on the palate to me, and I'll just have to have a glass of water or something with it. Not the case tonight, but that has been very rare, and I've probably gone through at least a box of these in the past year. Um, but this one was just fantastic as normal. It stayed within that the tropical spice kind of family of flavors that we've talked about probably too much in the past. And it got the white pepper kind of tempering that sweeter spice, and a little leather and some woodsiness, and this one just fell right in line with the what I find typical in these cigars, and I I have bought them and will continue to do so. I definitely recommend anybody giving these a try. They're potent enough for somebody that's used to fuller cigars, but I think they're very approachable, and I think it's a good cigar for just about anybody.
I'd say from from memory, I have no recollection of ever feeling overmatched by the strength or the nicotine level in the cigars. Um, I I say that it's probably medium strength, probably medium body. I don't think that it's has a rather full body to it whatsoever. I don't have any major memories of feeling like I needed to chew the smoke at any point, but definitely do agree with you 100% about that kind of baking spice or tropical spice um, theme. It goes a long way to me with kind of a bready or yeasty flavor that I get out of the cigar. I think that those two flavors tend to work well together, and in this cigar, they not only worked well, they almost seem to be in tandem with each other. So I generally do enjoy these. I'm very happy that a good tobacconist pointed this cigar out to me at the end of last year. I've enjoyed quite a few since then.
Yeah, and what you just said is the very reason I said what I said 2 minutes ago. Is I've mentioned my father's cigars to various people that tend to migrate toward lighter flavors, lighter strength, and I would still recommend even those folks give this one a try. It's a little different than most of what you find the Garcia's name attached to.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. I would probably say that I prefer mild cigars. Now, not mild cigars in the Connecticut wrapped Macanudo next to no flavor sense, but you can find spectacularly flavorful cigars that are just mild in nicotine strength. Um, and yet, I absolutely enjoy this cigar. It's not as if this is something that me, someone who has that preference as I do, feels like I need to put on my big boy pants before I want to have it or anything. So,
Exactly. So I think
yeah.
we're kind of winding down for the night. What do we got coming up next week?
Well, next week is another fun one for us. It's our second Unbanded we're going to focus on. This one actually being sent in by a listener, an old friend of Dog Watch and a buddy of ours, Jeff Curtis. Had the pleasure to meet him last summer, and uh, really do look forward to what he's got on store for us. So I don't think we've got a number of these samples, so we will be smoking it for the first time on the recording here. So. It'll be probably a little bit more cigar focused show than what we typically do. We'll probably hit back and forth on the review as we're going through it, or as we get anything unique out of it, and that'll make for an enjoyable show for me, and I hope the listeners too. I think it'll be fun to kind of be that much more focused on it.
Yeah, and Jeff has another one in the pipeline. He emailed this suggestion in, and Christy had a friend of mine pick these up for us. But he sent me an email this week that he was sending some others in. So those are the two ways to get those to us. You can send an email to info@thecigarme.com, and that forwards to my wife's email address, where she will then have one of my local cohorts source the cigars for us. Or you can mail them to me. You can send me an email to kip@thecigarme.com, and I'll get you an address to send those to.
Well, this is time of the show where we sit back and thank everybody who helps make Half-Ashed possible. So, besides obviously my spectacular co-host, who I couldn't do the show without. Thank you, Kip, for that. I don't think that I thank you near as much as I should. We've also got the great people at CigarFederation.com who approached us and really made us an offer we couldn't refuse, and it had nothing to do with money or product or anything like that. It had everything to do with integrity and involving ourselves with people that we consider to be good folks. So check out CigarFederation.com. Get up on that website. Take a look at everything that they got going on. You're going to enjoy it, definitely.
Yeah, I'm
Yep.
actually seeing a little more activity there recently, which is a good thing. So, you guys, by all means, go over there and make yourself a little profile, and contribute to the forum and whatnot. And at least once a month, we have our show live there, where we open up a chat room and can interact with folks that are listening live while we're doing the show. And that's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah, that is a really fun thing. Not that this is ever work or the doldrums for us, but it peps it up a little bit. It makes it a little bit more think on your feet, laugh a little bit when somebody says something silly, or when it's just guys being guys and having a good time. So, not that ladies aren't welcome. We'd absolutely always love to have the female influence in here too. Just you know, now I got myself backed into a corner. I shouldn't have said that. What I
Yeah, just let it go.
Yeah, yeah. Well, also I want to kind of bookend the thanks that I have for Kip by saying head on up to the good man's blog at thecigarme.com. Check out the accompanying reviews for tonight's featured cigar and information about the wrap on tonight's cigar too, or tonight's show as well. Not to mention all the hard work that Kip does put in up there, definitely. I did not have my review for last week's cigar up prior to last week's show, but that I believe did go up this week, so check that out as well. Not that I claim to be the world's greatest cigar reviewer, but I'm trying my hand a little bit of this blogging thing and seem to be enjoying it.
I went back and actually added a link to your review to last week's show summary, and so you can get it there.
Great. That's a great way for people to do that.
Yeah, and that way we're not double posting and everybody getting two emails for the same show.
Yeah, that's Actually, that's very thoughtful of you. Yet another reason why you're such a nice guy.
I just don't like my inbox filling up and assume everybody else is the same way.
Yeah, I hear you there.
And
Well,
one more little quick thing here. I've been working on actually for this whole week. Um, I don't know if many of you are familiar with Arizona cigars, but I have just about smoked through their whole range of cigars. So immediately on the heels of this show summary this week, there will be this series of articles I do called Cigar Spotlights, where take a look at a certain manufacturer and kind of go through their range with at least one size from each of their different lines, and that's exactly what we're doing for Hitty Arizona. And I have one more to go, so that'll be up in the next couple of days.
great. I'll look forward to that, definitely. I love those spotlights that you've done. Well, want to make sure everybody knows, definitely send us email, guys. We really dig getting feedback from you or questions or comments or anything. I mean, email both Kip and I whenever you want, however often you want. How's that? My address is Craig at thecigarme.com, and Kip's is Kip at thecigarme.com. And I know he's just as excited to get feedback from listeners as I am, and we look forward to communicating with you guys any way, shape, or form, be it email, Facebook, Twitter, Cigar Federation, all those. Friend us on Cigar Fed, whatever you want to do. My easiest way to find me, if you're not going to email, is probably Twitter. I have become a tweeting machine, at least compared to what I used to be. So I'm Craig S. Schneider, at Craig S. Schneider on Twitter. So feel free to take a look at anything I got going up there if you want to hear about cigars, family, comedy, Dave Matthews Band, Blackhawks, Cubs, all the like. All the things in my life, you'll see them up on there. So,
Cool. Well, I think we're winding down then. Sounds like we're in good shape for another week, huh?
yep, absolutely. Thanks everybody for helping Kip and I put together another week and being there for the support. And I just want to say this show, I'd like to thank my good buddy Dave for making it a lot easier to get through some tough times and difficult situations and typical situations as well. So thanks a lot, and everybody out there in the interweb space, as Kip refers to it. Thanks for listening. Have a great week, and we cannot wait till talk to you until next week.